Team, this is George. Appreciate all your effort on the Flight 93 assignment. I've had a few questions, and I would imagine because of a mix-up with the video, I kind of posted one that wasn't as good as the one that's currently up there. So I wanted to go ahead and talk about the questions, state a few things about that time when all that was going on, and look at some underlying factors that were going as well, but specifically to answer a few questions that I've received. So give me a second to give us some background on this. I'm going to use my case when all this was going on. I was actually working for the Skunk Works, and I was driving to Palmdale. It was, I want to say 5:30 in the morning. It could have been 4:30 because I vary when I would go to work, 4:30 or 5:30 in the morning. And I was driving on El Mirage Road, a back road from Apple Valley to Palmdale, California. And I heard on the radio that a plane hit one of the towers. And at first they thought it was, some personal plane, personal aircraft, something that just got mixed up and hit the tower. And then as I was driving, it's about an hour and 10-minute drive. As I was driving, the facts started coming in over the radio. And normally you can hear jet noise by one of the many different aircraft facilities that I would pass going to work in the morning, and there was silence. Everything was shut down. When I got to work, I couldn't even get into work because everything was locked down. It was quite an incredible just feeling of like, what in the world's going on? And then for an aircraft guy to look up in the skies and see nothing, that was odd because we would fly every single day. So it was a crazy time. And some of the underlying things that happened in this, that actually this attack changed the way we look at things like hijacking. So before this incident, the protocol was just to sit back, let the plane land, negotiate, things like that, and no harm would be done. That's the way things usually happen. But the terrorists were able to take advantage of that mindset because nothing like this had ever happened before. So now that mindset is no longer there with passengers or with a crew, because now it's hostile. So they take a lot more precautions. So that entire mindset or paradigm shifted away from just allowing things to happen to being to actively engage against a situation. So that actually changed that whole paradigm, because that's the way it used to be. Was an airplane was hijacked, it would land, go over demands, there was a negotiation, and no one was ever out to induce mass casualties. So that's one of the things that was going on at that time that would cause the paradigm shift that happened. Now, also in the film, you saw him talking to the Air Force as well, and the Air Force never had anything. Well, they had things in place, but no one ever thought that they would have to use them to shoot down an airliner with passengers, with innocent passengers. Could you imagine being the pilot who would have that responsibility to shoot a missile or shoot their guns at the aircraft with all the people in it? That was kind of incredible, the process that they would have to go through. But you notice, even though it was 10 to 15 minutes away from the Capitol building, they still did not have their okay to attack the plane and to stop it from getting to the White House or getting to the Capitol building, either way, because the whole bureaucratic process had never been ran through and no one was able to make decisions. There were no decision makers. Who would want to make that decision? To be quite honest, who would want to kill innocent people? But that's one of those things that you have to weigh the needs of the many versus needs of the few. I don't know how that would weigh out, and I personally would not want to make that decision either. So now, with that being said, I want to jump into some of the specific questions. And when we talk here with focus from a paradoxical, apparently contradictory viewpoint, provide a diagnosis of the two viewpoints. Well, the two viewpoints that really stick out, and there's more than just two. You can have more than what I'm going to say. But notice, and Mark's mom Love that lady. She was tough. She was told Mark that the best thing for him to do was take over the plane, take back the plane. Can you imagine how hard that would be for a mom to say to their son? Wow. I don't know, but uh, that is the first viewpoint. The second one is, didn't you notice some of the, like one of the wives was just sit down, be quiet, be still. And so those are two paradoxical or contradictory viewpoints right there. So you have one way to hopefully come to an end of this, but two drastically different ways of doing it. And if you ever hear the phrase "let's roll," and that just doesn't give you a gut punch, if you will, uh, you just got to think of this movie because that was on everyone's mind after that happened. Good friend of mine, he was in the Air Force with me as well. He actually retired from the Air Force, and we were working together at Lockheed Martin. And he had a big blue truck. Gabe Padilla, a great friend of mine, and on the back of his truck was "Let's Roll." He put that on there, nice and big. After this whole thing happened, so you want to think about when incidents happen, the people that were involved, and that's like teaming. Did you notice how there was a team that got together to take back the plane, and there was a natural leader that arose, and that leader rose fairly quickly? And did you also notice that natural leader was saying the Lord's Prayer with the other lady on the other end of the line there? So it's hard. I've never met an atheist when everything was on the line. So it's hard to have no belief when everything's on the line. So saying the Lord's Prayer actually got him centered, and it helped him to make some clear decisions as they took over the aircraft or attempted to take over the aircraft. So that's kind of how you want to look at that piece of the question. And I already touched on this one here with focus on the rules of engagement and shot down authority, identify factors contributing to the lack of authority and decision making portrayed in the film. From a paradoxical viewpoint, provide diagnosis of two viewpoints. Some people wanted to shoot, some didn't. No one would make the decision. Why would they not make the decision? Personally, think of it, would you want to make that decision to say kill all those souls that are on that aircraft? I wouldn't want to make that decision. I already stated that. Would I if I have to? I don't know. I've never been in that situation. Uh, I would hope that I would be able to make the best choice available. I can't even say it would be a right or wrong choice, but the best choice available. Um, so discuss that from the viewpoint of how the bureaucracy kind of took over, and no one really wanted to take charge of that piece. No one wanted to just stand up and give the order. So the bureaucracy just kind of ran that one. That's the piece of that that we want to talk about. And here, uh, discuss the passive passenger. Should interference or non-interference have occurred? Profiling critical to law enforcement. Now this is a big one. Profiling. The Israeli law enforcement is very good at profiling, and the way you profile is through a behavioral standpoint. It's not about what somebody looks like, dresses like, or anything else. If you profile from a behavioral perspective, you can find out a lot of things about what people are trying to do. Now, if you profile from the way people look, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. It's the behavior that you want to confront. And there's a lot of good people, there's a lot of bad people. This is a world of sin, so we know that. And we want to focus on that sin, not on where somebody's from or what they look like. It needs to be behavior based. And you can even talk about, is behavior based profiling okay? There's arguments for that as well, but I do know that behavior-based profiling. So, hey, that person's sweating, that person's doing this, that person's doing that, they're acting erratically, things like that. The way their eyes are darting around and looking as they're going through security, things like that. Those are all behaviors to look at, and that can happen from anybody. So think about that as well, uh, from uh, a profiling or law enforcement standpoint. So could behavior-based profiling still be racist? I look forward to hearing some comments about that, because there's all sorts of perspectives that we need to take into place, and it has to be balanced with safety as well. So that's kind of the interesting uh, argument that a lot of people in law enforcement give. So is it ethical profiling? If to me, if you're profiling by the way somebody looks, it's not ethical, because you're just looking at somebody, and if they're different than you, something's wrong. So it is completely unethical to profile on looks. Behavior, I would be okay with making a profile behaviors, because it's worked in countries such as Israel, where they are very good at stopping um, these sorts of attacks. So that's some perspective on this. So think about it. Use your own perspective. If you see two different things battling it out, two different perspectives battling it out, use those as well. So I hope this helped, didn't make things more muddy, and have a fantastic week.